Hey yo guys, I'm back here to give you my UFC 93 review, as I'm also going to review the debut of HBO Boxing After Dark, which was Berto versus Luis Collazo for the WBC Welterweight Championship, which was an excellent fight. If you haven't seen that fight, just go out of your way to see it. It's an early fight of the year candidate for 2009 for boxing. It was just an excellent fight. And for any of people who are saying that boxing's dead, well, to me, boxing completely beat the crap out of mixed martial arts yesterday, as to me, UFC 93 was not the greatest show. You know what, to me, the opening fight between Chris Lytle and Marcus the Irish Hand Grenade Davis was, you know, a good fight, good way to get the crowd going, and, you know, add into it. And, you know, the main event between Rich Franklin and Dan Henderson was a pretty good fight, but still, the rest of the card was kind of disappointing and weird. And anyways, I'll get to my review here. Let's just do UFC 93 first. UFC 93 took place from the O2 Arena in Dublin, Ireland. As I said, it was, you know, two good fights, and the rest of it was just weird and kind of, I don't know, it was just an interesting portion of, some of it was just pretty bad in my opinion, some of it was just weird. But anyways, let me just get to the review. So we started with, as I said, Marcus the Irish Hand Grenade Davis versus Chris Lytle. Both guys wanted a complete stand-up battle, which to me, you know, made it for an entertaining fight for, say, if this is your first time, especially if you're there, as this was the first UFC show in Ireland. I mean, made for an entertaining fight in that portion of it. And, you know, for you watching on pay-per-view. And it was nice to see they actually, you know, stuck to their word if they're going to do a stand-up battle for the whole fight. Well, they did that. To me, this was a good fight. You know, I think, you know, Marcus Davis' boxing was just a little bit better. And the early portion, it looks like Chris Lytle completely rocked Davis and could have finished him early, but didn't. Marcus Davis is an insane strong chin and was able to come back there. You know, in the second round, Davis knocked down Lytle, or he just threw him down also as well, but he let him back up. So I thought that was interesting. You know, both guys had great boxing, great stand-up. I mean, the crowd was mad into this when this thing got going. They were a very hot crowd as they were singing, you know, the drinking songs or making soccer chants. It was a really interesting fight there. I really liked this one. Both guys gutted it out in the final round. And to me, I scored this one, you know, the first round for sure was definitely by a hair for Davis, but the rest of them were, you know, for sure I would give each round to Marcus Davis, so I had him winning 30-27. He wins by split decision, and, you know, it was a good, strong fight. If they want to do a rematch, that's fine. The other people on this card who want to do a rematch, hell no, in my opinion, but these two having a rematch would be fine. I don't know if you'd want to do it right now, but still, I thought it was a fine fight, and if there's a rematch, no problem. Then we went to the next fight, which was Dennis Kang making his UFC debut versus Alan the Talent Belcher. To me, this fight was pretty interesting, as you had Kang, you know, trying to prove that he wasn't going to be the first guy in this coming from Pride over to the UFC, you know, to not you know, get made him look like a fool. He actually dominated Belcher throughout the whole first round, at least. I mean, for sure the first round. I mean, he was just out there doing, you know, he had much better ground game. I mean, he had complete control on the ground and kept dominating him there. And it looked like, you know, he was going to probably go in for the kill in the second round. He'd probably get the finish pretty early, or maybe midway through the second round. Well, that didn't happen, as, you know, he spent a lot of energy trying to get a finish in the first round to Belcher, and he just couldn't get it. So he spent a lot of energy, and he was just tired. I mean, you could see him sucking wind, and then they eventually got stood up. Kang went to shoot in on Belcher, and Belcher just did it like some great takedown defense and put him in a guillotine and got a submission. Very weird. Dennis Kang was dominating the whole fight, and, you know, he just runs into what happens in it just ran into what happens in the world of MMA. He got caught. That's just unfortunate. I've heard people say that he's, you know, a pride bust. No, it was just an unlucky fluke thing for Kang to get caught in that situation. I mean, he got caught in a deep guillotine, so I mean, there's no way Dennis Kang was getting out of that. But still, I think I'd like to see him, you know, in another fight. If he gets dominated in that fight, then maybe he'd be then he would be a pride bust. But this, to me, he was dominating the whole fight and just got caught. So that's where I would go with that one. And then when they did the run through what's to happen on UFC. We announced that the March 7th show, which is, I believe, which is UFC 96, we get Quinton Jackson versus Keith Jardine. This should be a good fight, as, they're trying to set up, I guess in a way they're kind of doing a build to Jackson versus Evans. I know we all know Jackson wanted Forrest Griffin, but Forrest Griffin has a severe hand injury and will be out until late 2009, so it sucks that we won't get that rematch, which was a really good fight, and to me it was probably the best, technical aspect fight of the UFC of last year. So, anyways, we get Jardine. I think that'll be a good fight. I mean, Jardine's a warrior, and I think both guys like to slug it out. And in a way, you're trying to build. If Jackson gets past Jardine, which I think he will, as I think Jackson's a completely re-energized fighter. Him versus Evans, if now he beats one of the training partners, adds for some interesting story there. That's what they're trying to do here. So, anyways. But then we went to the next fight, which was Rousimar Palhares versus Jermey Horn. This fight, to me, was just weird, as you had Rousimar Palhares absolutely dominate Jermey Horn, but he couldn't get a finish. I mean, he is one of, the top brilliant Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighters in the UFC, and in his past 2 fights, he has been able to get a finish when he actually should have got a finish. He should have probably finished Henderson when he had him in, the ankle lock or toe hold. He didn't get that, but that's maybe because, Henderson's a really strong wrestler. This one, he should have finished Jermey Horn in the early round, in the early first, or in the second round. Easily. Jermey Horn was just able to, be a cockroach, survive, and he just rolled through, was able to, show some real resilience, which I will say I'm impressed, and as Jermey really did nothing in the fight other than, survive. But to me, Palhares, for someone being that good at submission, he hasn't got a finish in 2 fights that he really should. Very disappointing to me for Palhares, as he dominated this fight, but I mean, the way you dominate, you should probably get a submission, not leave this one up to the judges. I believe he did, yeah, he got it across, he got a judge's decision. Don't leave it up that way. That's very disappointing. It doesn't make you look like that strong of a fighter, and could kick you off the pay-per-view portion of it. I mean, if you can't get a finish, I mean, it wasn't that exciting of a fight too. It was just more watching some guy get beat up and trying to escape. So that's what I just thought there. But then we go to the fight that I thought they did a strong job building up, to me more so than Franklin and Henderson. It's Mark Coleman versus Mauricio Shogun Rua. This fight was not good at all. I shouldn't say not good at all, I guess. I mean, the first portion of the first round and the final round were good, but my God, both men had no cardio. 0 cardio for both men. Coleman was using the power, but he punched himself out in the early portions of the first round. Shogun was just gassed by the second round. I mean, he clearly could have got a submission there when he had, basically the figure 4, the leg lock on the shoulder there, or the figure 4 leg lock on the shoulder, but didn't. He just decided to sit there and get energy and allow Mark Coleman to regain energy. It looked like Mark Coleman fell asleep. I mean, this was just a bad fight. This was a very disappointing for Shogun. I mean, Coleman was gassed in the very first round, and he couldn't finish him. He finished him, with a good uppercut, a good series of combinations with a nice uppercut, got the stoppage. Coleman was upset about it, but come on. Coleman, you got rocked, and you were clearly out on your feet. This was for your own safety. And then after the fight, Coleman said that he wanted a rematch, but no, I don't want a rematch for my sake, and I don't think anyone else should want a rematch of. I mean, Coleman, I think Coleman should maybe fight, someone on the undercard, or, maybe the first fight, but someone who isn't, that top-level competition as Shogun, even though Shogun really didn't look top-tier competition here. And now he gets to face Chuck Liddell after this awful performance. I don't know why. I know Wanderlei wanted Wanderlei versus Liddell, but Wanderlei's, he's still sore from the UFC 92 fight with Jack. So we didn't get that, and plus he wants to fight a little later in June, and UFC wanted to use Chuck a little sooner, so we get that. Hopefully, Shogun can get the conditioning back and, be the Shogun of old, because I think this could be a real interesting fight with Chuck, but this was just a bad performance. He got a win, but he didn't really, turn any critics. He gets his first win, but come on. You beat Coleman, who's 40 gassed. I mean, Coleman needs to go back to heavyweight. I definitely don't think Coleman's going to be a top-tier contender, but he should be in heavyweight at least. To fight some of the, talent you're just trying to groom up. that's just what I thought there. But to me there was drama in the third round, as you weren't sure what was going to happen. You didn't know who was going to rock anyone, because both guys were absolutely gassed from the second round. And you just didn't know if Coleman's power was going to come there and drop Shogun. You know, Shogun was going to get a takedown and get a submission, or even use the combinations, which he eventually did. So that's the only bright side I could see, but still not the strongest performance from both men at all. Then we went to the main event, which was Rich Franklin versus Dan Henderson. You know what, this fight was pretty interesting. And honest to me, the first round, it was a tough round to call, as both guys, you know, fought real strong. But to me, I gave this one, the first round, to Dan Henderson, as he was able to get like a takedown. He kept Franklin down and would deliver some punches. Almost did get a finish there, but you know, Franklin, being Franklin, was able to get out of that and got back to stand up, and you know, was able to survive the first round. Well, I shouldn't really say survive, but he was able to, you know, get it to the second round. Then we went to this, when the second round really was a tough round to call. Both men, you know, basically fought even. I scored this one even at 9-9 apiece. Very tough round. I don't know. I mean, you could to an extent go both ways, but I just thought there was nothing really decisive to give it to either one guy, so that's where I went with a draw there. The third round was a tough break, as you know, it was all Franklin really. Franklin was out there dictating the pace, and then you had Henderson, you know, trying to throw a jab, but it was basically an open hand jab, and his finger got right in the eye. And then we had the stupidness of mixed martial art rules, as to me, if you get hit with a low blow, a finger to the eye, or something like that, where you need, you know, time, let's give everyone, you know, a 5-minute break. A low blow is 5 minutes, fine. Eye pokes, why is it just 2? Let's give everyone 5 minutes to recover. I mean, that's absolutely fair, I think. It sets a you're set a precedent with the low blow. What's wrong? I mean, getting hit in the eye is just as painful as, you know, a low blow. So, to me, that's where I would go with. I just think it's just stupid that, you know, you don't get time to recover for the eye injury. I mean, I've always thought this, but, you know, I've thought this for a long time, and I think the Robbie Lawler versus Scott Smith first fight on the Elite XC primetime show was more evident of this, and this here will prove that. This kind of did kill the, you know, the great battle aspect of this card, in this fight at least, as, you know, both guys were actually fighting their hearts out there, and it just tainted it that, you know, they had to get the stop, and then nothing really exciting happened towards the end, but, you know, it was a strong finish to the end. I don't know. I mean, they gave it to Henderson. I've heard people are upset that Franklin didn't win. To an extent, I can say, as definitely the third round was all Henderson. All Franklin. The first round was all Henderson. Well, not all Henderson, but Henderson did the majority of the work, I should say. And, you know, the second round was too close to call. It depends on your perspective there. I had it as a draw. I had this one as a draw. So, to me, I don't know what you're going to go with, but I think the UFC... I mean, Henderson getting the win is better for the UFC, as Rich Franklin really didn't want to care about coaching. Henderson kind of wants to care about coaching for the show, so that's where you go. And you get a kind of a real interesting fight in Henderson versus Bisping, so I think that's going to be fine. Overall, it was kind of a disappointing pay-per-view. Really, the UFC is more looking forward to the 31st show, UFC 94, so we'll see where they go from there. I'm really looking forward to the Silva, Machida, and obviously Penn versus St. Pierre. So, anyways, that's just my thoughts on the show. To me, I would go potentially thumbs down. More leaning thumbs down, but I'd stick it with thumbs in the middle. So anyways, that's just my thoughts on that show. But then, if you haven't seen the HBO Boxing After Dark, oh my goodness, this was an awesome fight. Andre Berto versus Luis Collazo. I just absolutely forgot how to pronounce his name. I'm sorry. Collazo, excuse me, Luis Collazo. This fight was awesome. Both men, you know, came out. They were just swinging. I mean, this had the makings of a great fight, as you know. One at the first portions of the fight, Collazo's out there dictating, and you see Berto make a comeback and, you know, trying to make this thing interesting. Then you have Berto dictate the pace. Collazo makes the comeback. Oh my God, it was just back and forth, and that's what made it so dramatic, because you didn't know who was going to win. You know, it just showed the heart of a champion that Andre Berto is, and, you know, for those of you who don't know, Andre Berto's brother is a former, is lightweight competitor who fought with Elite XC, Edson Berto, who will be remembered for getting, you know, amazingly knocked out by Yves Edwards back at Elite XC Street Certified with the jumping knee. But anyways, besides the point here. I mean, Berto was, you know, getting the pace taken to him. I mean, he was losing rounds just by the narrowest of margin. he was kind of clinching a bit too much, but, you know, the first time he did the clinch, there was no problem. He almost got, you know, knocked down and, you know, could have been counted out there, but he clinched a lot, and the referee took a point, but there was more clinching from Collazo. So to me, that's where I would go on that aspect of that. But to me, this fight was just excellent. Berto came back. I mean, it was all up to Berto to really win it in the final round, and he did. That's what makes something of a champion. This was an excellent fight. Both guys went out guns a-blazing. Luis Collazo really, he should have beaten Ricky Hatton before in a boxing after dark card. He took on Shane Mosley. He had a hand injury and had a very disappointing performance. This was his real chance to shine. And you know what, in him losing really doesn't affect him. I would definitely put him back in, you know, he's still, to me, is in title contention as, you know, he may have lost by the narrowest of margins, with the exception of one judge who gave it, I believe, 115, 111, which this fight was not that. It was, like, this close of a fight to score. But anyways, that's where I would go with, I think, Luis Collazo. Should still be, you know, a top-tier competitor in the welterweight division in boxing. And I would put him on, you know, an undercard of a big pay-per-view. He's going to be a very entertaining fighter. And, you know, put Berto on there as well. Berto, extremely entertaining fighter. You know, he had a lot of he's got a lot of quickness, and, you know, he's got power behind his punches. Looked like he almost was going to knock out Luis Collazo in the final round, but that didn't happen. Anyways, this is a great fight. Please go out of your way and see it. I mean, this just boxing beat mixed martial arts for the first time in a very long while. But anyways, that's it for me. I'm out. Peace.